Torah says, Lo sikach shochad. One should not look for or accept or suborn in any way shochad, which is bribery, but it means that it grants, it comes in many forms. I mean, in its crudest form is that a person gives money to a judge, to witnesses, or to a public official, that in turn for the money that is being given, they will provide him with a favorable judgment, a permit, whatever he wants to get. So that's shochat in its crudest form. But there are many more subtle instances of shochat. And in fact, in the Sifrei Hasidim and in the Musar Sforim also, they talk about the fact that we live in a society, in a world that's mishuchad, that has always this element of corruption within it. And we see that in our everyday lives here, unfortunately. Every day there's a new story. It's almost irresistible because of the nature of people. And we saw that in the Haftorah of Shabbos Chazon, that the Novi complains that all of the magistrates and officers that existed in that time in Malchus Yehuda, they all accepted shochat. And they all looked for it. They wanted to get paid off. But as I mentioned, there are subtler forms of it. We live in a society, for instance, that elections play a great role in the policy of the government and of rulership. So by promising certain things, that's a very subtle form of shochat. You vote for my party, you vote for me, this and this will happen that will benefit you. So that's the basis of how society works. So how do we eliminate that? And the answer is that we really can't. That's what the Sforim meant, that the society is mishuchat. It has that element of shochat to it, that shmor li v'ani eshmor loch. You take care of me, you vote for me, and I'll take care of you. I'll provide laws or benefits that will be of great importance to you. So the Torah says, Ki ha-shochad ya'aver einei chachomim v'yisalev divrei tzadikim. Shochad has in it the ability that it takes people that are otherwise wise, that are otherwise capable, that are otherwise basically honest people, and mean the best, but it blinds them. They don't realize what they're doing. And therefore the Gemara says that even if a person accepts shochad to do the right thing, it also already corrupts him, because of the fact that he is subject to that blindness, that even a wise person. And it's interesting to note, I mean, I think that by now and people should understand it, that you're likely to not escape unscathed from such situations. They'll get you, especially if you're in the public eye, if you're a public official. So they're looking for you. So the Knesset has a law today, for instance, that you cannot give a member of Knesset any gifts. So I had that insight, a member of Knesset that came, we had a meeting in my house, a very fine person, and so I wanted to give him a book of mine, which is really minor shochad. And he couldn't accept it, because there's this law that they can't accept. So the question is, where do you draw the line on what is social, what is, so to speak, social intercourse? What is usual or what is not? So can you give the Prime Minister of Israel a cigar? An expensive cigar, but it goes up in smoke. Does it affect? What does it do? And the nature of the situation is that there's always this give and take. And that's why it says, V'yisalev divrei tzadikim. People who are righteous. It perverts their words. It changes them. And that becomes a blemish in society. It becomes very difficult to deal with. So therefore the Torah says, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. We are always in the pursuit of tzedek, of doing it right. The Gemara emphasizes that the reason it's repeated, tzedek, tzedek, is that it not only must the end goal be tzedek, but the means to arrive at that end goal also must be tzedek. We have the famous idea that many times the means justify the end, or rather the end justifies the means. That I'm doing a noble purpose, so therefore the means that I use to get to that noble purpose, all of them, in my eyes, are kosher because I'm coming, and if you'll expand it, you have that in general society. The government wants to do the best for the people, so therefore they have to pass laws that are not necessarily the best now, that are harmful. Or we have cases of entire countries, the countries that were under communist rule, for instance. So they wanted to make the paradise for the people, so they made it by killing people. So then that became justified. So that's the power of shochad that exists, that it blinds us to all areas of moral justice. And because of that, therefore, it's always a tricky situation. And it's not only a matter of governmental figures or of legal judges, etc., but it's in everyday life. The Bali Musar have a long essay on giving candy to children, which is essential shochad. You know, if you take, you'll do your homework tonight. You know, I'll give you 50 shekel. Do your homework tonight. So we want the child to do the homework, but is that a chinuch? What does that train the child? What does he think of it? I'm not saying this about anything here in shul, because our shul is perfect. But there's a long piece from one of the great Bali Musar about giving candy to children in shul. So not because they'll throw the wrappers on the floor, or not because they're wild because of it, or not because they become hyper from the sugar, but because of the fact that you're training them badly, right? That's a means of shochad. I want to go to shul not because I want to go to shul. I want to go to shul because I want to get a candy. Now, sometimes, what?
Is that allowed? That's a stretch.
We never discuss practical matters here. It's a stretch, certainly it's a stretch, but it's a concept. It's a concept of why we consider our society to be a meshuchet society, is because from the beginning, from children onwards, that's the way it works. And so if you see that you can't exist without it. I want to be the best student in my class because I want to be the valedictorian. I want to be able to make the graduation speech. I want to get into this school, into this yeshiva. So the idea that I mentioned to you on Shabbos when we learned Pirkei Avos, Chol Ma'asecha Yu L'Shem Shamayim, that a person has to set goals that are higher than that. That there's more to it than just what I can get out of it, what the response is. And that becomes a very difficult thing to teach. And it becomes very difficult to teach in a society that is, so to speak, corrupted to believe the opposite, that that's not the way to do it. And Chazal warned us about that, but they left us no blueprint as to how to avoid shochat, how not to do it. Now, the Gemara says, as examples of shochat, things that we wouldn't even, the Gemara says Shmuel, for instance, was a dayan in Nardoeh. And two people came to him for a din Torah. And he recognized one person was a person that morning when Shmuel was crossing the footbridge across the river, so the person allowed Shmuel to go first. Or like he opened the door for him. So Shmuel said, I can't be your dayan anymore. I can't be the judge anymore. Because I'm influenced by your behavior towards me. That in the world you have that, the Torah says, Lo sakiru ponim, not to recognize the person. Lo sagur b'naish, and not to show respect one to the other. You don't have, that's not a consideration. But in the practical world, in the imperfect world that we live in, these are very, very high goals to achieve. And because of that, therefore, there are failings in society, even in the society of Chachamim and Tzaddikim. That's why the Torah mentioned it, that shochat has that power. So it's something we should be aware of. And if we're aware of it, then maybe we can temper it and make our decisions and our understanding based upon better motives, and not to fall into the trap that shochat always entails, and because that blinds us and perverts our words, and it takes good people and makes out of them other things as well.